ARD is a joint organization of Germany's regional public service broadcasters. It was founded in 1950 in West Germany to represent the common interests of the new, decentralized, post-war broadcasting services, in particular the introduction of a joint television network. The ARD is the world's largest public broadcaster, with a budget of $6.3 billion and 23,000 employees. The budget comes primarily from the license fees every household, every company and even every public institution like city governments are required to pay. For an ordinary household the fee is currently $17.98 per month. Households living on welfare don't have to pay the fee. The fees are not collected directly by the ARD, but by the Beitrags service, a common organization of the ARD member broadcasters, the second public TV broadcaster ZDF, and Deutschlandradio. ARD maintains and operates a national television network, called Das Erste to differentiate it from ZDF, aka Das White, which started 1963, as a separate public TV broadcaster. The ARD network began broadcasting on October 31, 1954 under the name of Deutsches Fernsehen, becoming Erstes Deutsches Fernsehen with a corporate redesign in 1984. It adopted its current name in 1994. ARD's programs are aired over its own terrestrial broadcast network, as well as via cable, satellite and IPTV. ARD also produces 3 free-to-air digital channels and participates in the production of cable satellite channels Phoenix, KIKA, 3Sat and ARD. ARD's programming is practiced within Germany's local communities, where its regional members, Hessischer Rundfunk, Mitteldeutscher Rundfunk, Norddeutscher Rundfunk, Radio Bremen, Rundfunk Berliner Brandenburg, Saarlandischer Rundfunk, Saarlandrundfunk and Westdeutscher Rundfunk, operate 54 regional and local radio stations and 7 regional TV networks, some of which split further during certain parts of the day. International broadcaster Deutsche Welle is also a member of ARD. History == German, Arbeitsgemeinschaft der Paragraph Ländlichen Rundfunkanstalten der Bundesrepublik Deutschland, Consortium of the Public Law Broadcasting Institutions of the Federal Republic of Germany, Public Law Broadcasting Institutions means broadcasters which are not privately owned and are not governmental radio or TV. ARD is not owned by anybody, particularly not by Germany. ARD members like BR are not owned by their land either. With the Rundfunkfreiheit, they have an independent position. 1940s and 1950s The winning allies of World War II determined that German radio after the war would not broadcast the same propaganda as the pre-war Reichsrundfunkgesellschaft. A federal structure, the renunciation of state influence and the avoidance of economic dependence were to be the key of the radio and TV institutions under public law. The legal form of the new entity was Anstalt des Paragraph-Ländlichen Rats, a non-government and non-profit organization with its own administration under the control of 2 commissions, the Rundfunkrat and the Verwaltungsrat, in which different stakeholders from German public life were represented. ARD's founding members were Nordwestdeutscher Rundfunk, the station for the former British zone, Saarlandrundfunk, the station in the French zone, and 4 stations located in the former American sector, Bayerischer Rundfunk, Saarlandrundfunk, Rundfunk, Hessischer Rundfunk and Radio Bremen. The new entity was financed by an obligatory fee which every German household with at least one radio receiver paid. Each station received the money collected in its state. Larger ARD members subsidized smaller ones up to a certain extent. In 1947, American military governor Lucius D. Clay declared diversity of public opinion as the main aim of post-war media policy. Individuals aligned with the post-war Allied forces in their respective sectors of Germany had a local influence on local regional broadcasters. ARD cites the influence of Hugh Green on the early years of their organization. After the creation of individual broadcasting agencies for most German federal states, these principles were further consolidated by Lackarency der Broadcasting Laws, decisions of the Federal Constitutional Court and state treaties between the Lackarency der ARD members are thus free of government influence and rely for only a small part of their income on advertising. They are financed mainly from license fees from radio and TV owners, which are set through a complex political process. The mandated aim of the ARD corporations is not only to inform and to entertain, but also to encourage the integration of various parts of society and allow minorities a say in programming. In the 1950s, the ARD radio services became the major factor of the mass media system in West Germany. As early as 1952, the ARD radio stations had 10 million listeners. However, the radio stations operated on a regional level, and it was only the development of a television umbrella that helped the ARD to establish itself nationwide. The broadcasting of a country-wide TV broadcast service was the goal of the ARD from the outset, and the go-ahead for this was given at the end of 1952. The same year, ARD was admitted as a full active member of the European Broadcasting Union, and the German Sound Archive, now German Broadcasting Archive, was established as a joint facility of the ARD. In 1955, the founding member NWDR split into today's NDR and WDR. The year before, the smaller SFB was split off. The first daily news feature, the Tagesschau, went on the air from Hamburg in 1952. The famous 8 p.m. chime and announcement "Hier ist das erste deutsche Fernsehen mit der Tagesschau" remains an ARD hallmark today. The broadcast attracts an average of 8 million viewers. 1960s are Euro 1980s After starting with a schedule of a mere 2 hours per night, television became more widespread in Germany in the 1960s. Color broadcasts were introduced in 1967. Without competition from private broadcasters' radio programs, the ARD stations made considerable progress in becoming modern and respected broadcasters. ZDF, a second public television broadcaster with centralized national organization structure, began its programming in 1963, but ARD would encounter no private competition in Germany until 1984. The ARD stations have also been a significant force in German politics. Such investigative news magazines as Monitor and Panorama still reach millions of viewers every week. The environmental movement increased in popularity during the 1980s, largely as a result of the disclosures made by ARD. When private commercial German-language broadcasters were admitted in Germany by federal law in the mid-1980s, ARD television made subtle changes, adapting somewhat by producing programs oriented to a larger audience for their national networks and shifting many cultural and news programs to the regional networks and to newly created niche channels. Informational television programs and the orientation of Deutschlandfunk programs towards the GDR were of importance to the eventual collapse of the GDR. Established in 1974, the ARD Bureau in East Berlin made ARD television the most important source of information for GDR citizens, 80% of whom could watch what they referred to as Westfernsehen. Notwithstanding obstruction on the part of GDR authorities and the repeated expulsion of their correspondents, the ARD Tagesschau and Deutschlandfunk transmitted reports about the Leipzig Monday demonstrations as early as September 1989. 1990s After unification and the closure of the GDR television service, two new regional broadcasters were established in the East, becoming ARD members in 1992. These were originally the Mitteldeutscher Rundfunk and Ostdeutscher Rundfunk Brandenburg. The existing NDR service expanded into the northeast, where it also covers Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. The ORB service has since merged with the former Sender Freies Berlin to become Rundfunk Berlin-Brandenburg. Another merger took place between two member organizations of the ARD in 1998. The former Saar One-Quarter-Deutscher Rundfunk and Saar One-Quarter-Westfunk became Saar One-Quarter-Westrundfunk on October 1, 1998. ARD programming Radio Today, ARD member stations usually regulate their own radio programming. Some ARD member stations usually collaborate for common radio services. Most ARD stations, however, will have at least a news-oriented radio station, a classical music station, a youth-oriented station, and a cultural station. At night some stations will relay common night programming produced on a rota system by the ARD stations themselves. There are 3 common night programming services: Nacht Express Radio Wecker, Nachtkonzert, and Popnacht. Most services are on the FM broadcast band, though some services are also available on DAB. A similar network intended for national coverage is called Deutschlandradio. However, Deutschlandradio is not an ARD member. Instead, Deutschlandradio is controlled by both ARD and ZDF. Deutschlandradio provides 2 terrestrial radio services, Deutschlandfunk, a news-oriented service, and Deutschlandradio Kultur, a music-oriented service. It also provides a science-orientated internet channel, Radio Wissen. ARD's best-known radio station outside Germany is Deutsche Welle, which broadcasts its radio services around the world in many languages, mostly on analog shortwave radio. Deutsche Welle has no FM distribution in Germany. Archive Radio is an ARD internet radio station which streams raw audio material from German sound archives, mainly the ARD radio archives and the DRA. The program is accompanied by a web portal run by the ARD member SWR, with background information of the original sounds aired. Television The main television channels of the ARD are the nationwide Das Erste and 7 regional channels operated by the different regional broadcasting institutions. These channels were available on the analog terrestrial transmitters until the shutdown of the analog transmitters started in 2003. Das Erste and the Third programs, like the radio stations, are principally funded by license fees, with a very limited amount of on-air advertising. Das Erste broadcasts nationwide 24 hours a day, although the schedule does include 4.5 hours of joint programming with ZDF each weekday, in the form of the news programs Morgenmagazin and Mittagsmagazin, which the 2 organizations take weekly turns to produce. Audience share, 12.5%. From €14.49 years 6.9%. The regional members of ARD all, jointly or separately, operate their own regional channels, known collectively as Die Dritten. Before recent rebrandings, most of these stations had names like West 3 and Hessen 3. The schedules of these regional channels also include sub-regional opt-outs at certain times, in particular for local news. Bayerisches Fernsehen from Bayerischer Rundfunk, HR Fernsehen from Hessischer Rundfunk, MDR Fernsehen from Mitteldeutscher Rundfunk, NDR Fernsehen from Norddeutscher Rundfunk, opt-outs, state programs for Lower Saxony, Schleswig-Holstein, Hamburg, Mecklenburg-Vorpommern and RBTV from Radio Bremen, RBB Fernsehen from Rundfunk Berlin-Brandenburg, SWR Fernsehen from Saar 1 Quartet Westrundfunk in collaboration with Senior Fernsehen WDR Fernsehen from Westdeutscher Rundfunk. ARD has started 3 additional channels as part of their ARD digital package, Eins Plus, Tagesschau 24, Eins Festival. ARD is also involved in several joint venture channels, 3Sat with ZDF, ORF and SG, a cultural channel, KIKA with ZDF, a children's channel, Art with ZDF and France Tar Copyright La Copyright Visions, a Franco-German cultural channel, Phoenix with ZDF, a news and documentary channel, focused on showing press conferences and political debates in the German parliament live, in addition to historical and political features. The international broadcaster Deutsche Welle also produces television services. However, these services are mostly available via satellite. Institutions and member organizations. ARD operates many correspondence offices in foreign cities, second only to BBC News. ARD and its regional broadcasters are also represented on the World Wide Web. ARD operates several other companies and institutions, sometimes jointly with ZDF, Digito Film, a television rights trader and production company. The German Broadcasting Archive. The Institute for Broadcasting Technology, responsible for research and development. The Fee Collection Center, and others. ARD is a supporter of the Hybrid Broadcast Broadband TV initiative that is promoting and establishing an open European standard for hybrid set-top boxes for the reception of broadcast TV and broadband multimedia applications with a single user interface. See also, Television in Germany, Schweizerdeutsches Fernsehen, list of German-language television channels. References, ARD, ARD Jahrbuch 2005. Hans Bordeaux Institute, 2005 ISBN 3-8329-1730-6. External links, official site, official information about ARD in English. Podcasts The Tagesschau, produced by the ARD on a nightly basis, is available on the ARD website as a podcast. Other audio programs from the ARD's members and Deutsche Welle are available as podcasts, through their respective websites. References